Welcome back to Her True Stories, where real women share their journeys of strength, betrayal, and ultimate triumph. I'm your host, and today's story comes from Margaret, a 55-year-old woman who discovered that sometimes the people closest to you can be the ones who hurt you the most. Before we dive into Margaret's incredible story of revenge and redemption, don't just listen and leave. Hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell so you'll never miss another story that speaks to your soul. Trust me, you won't want to miss what happens when this mother decides she's had enough. And if you're enjoying this story, please give it a thumbs up and let me know in the comments below. Have you ever had a family member betray your trust? How did you handle it? I read every single comment, and your stories inspire our community every day. My name is Margaret Cole, and I'm 55 years old. Some say I'm beautiful for my age, though after what my daughter did to me, I learned that beauty means nothing when your own child sees you as nothing more than a walking ATM. It was a Tuesday evening in March when my phone rang. I was sitting in my modest apartment in Fresno, California, having just finished a simple dinner of soup and crackers. My retirement from the city library hadn't exactly left me swimming in luxury, but I was content. I had my books, my garden, and what I thought was a loving relationship with my only child. Mom, Emily's voice bubbled through the speaker with an excitement I hadn't heard in months. I have the most incredible news. My heart lifted. Emily had been distant lately, short phone calls, missed holidays, always too busy with her new life in San Francisco with Jacob, her husband of 2 years. Hearing genuine joy in her voice made me forget all the loneliness I'd been carrying. What is it, sweetheart? We're going to Hawaii. All three of us, you, me, and Jacob. It's going to be our first big family vacation together. I nearly dropped the phone. Hawaii? I dreamed of visiting the islands my entire life, but on my librarian's pension, it had always seemed impossible. The closest I'd come was watching travel documentaries and reading about the volcanic beaches and tropical sunsets. Emily, that sounds wonderful, but honey, I couldn't possibly afford. Mom, stop right there, she interrupted, laughing. This is our treat. You've worked so hard your entire life, raised me as a single mother, put me through college. You deserve this. We've already looked at the most beautiful places, oceanfront villas, pristine beaches, everything you've ever dreamed of. Tears pricked my eyes. Maybe I'd been wrong about the distance between us. Maybe Emily had just been busy planning this incredible surprise. Are you absolutely sure? I don't want to be a burden or intrude on your time together. Nonsense. You could never be a burden. You're my mother, and I love you. Just leave everything to us. We'll handle all the details, flights, accommodations, activities. All you need to do is pack your bags and get ready for the adventure of a lifetime. That night, I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, my heart full for the first time in months. I imagined walking on black sand beaches, feeling the warm Pacific breeze, watching the sunset with my daughter and son-in-law. Maybe Jacob and I would finally bond. Maybe this trip would repair whatever had been broken in our family. If only I had known what was really waiting for me. But sometimes, the universe has a way of preparing us for exactly what we need to learn, even when it hurts. I should have known it was too good to be true. 2 weeks passed before I heard anything more about our Hawaiian adventure. I'd started researching the islands, buying sunscreen, and even splurged on a new sundress from the department store clearance rack. Every time I passed a travel magazine at the grocery store, I'd flip through the Hawaii sections, imagining myself in those paradise photos. Then the email came. It was forwarded from Emily with a brief message. Here are your travel details, Mom. Can't wait. Red heart. I opened the attachment, expecting to see airline tickets and hotel confirmations. Instead, I found a Greyhound bus ticket from Fresno to Los Angeles International Airport. I stared at the screen, confused. A bus ticket? For a 12-hour journey? I read it again. thinking I'd misunderstood. The departure time was 6 a.m., arriving at LAX at 6:30 p.m. Then, buried in a second attachment, I found a basic economy flight from LAX to Honolulu, departing at 11:45 p.m. My phone was in my hands before I could think twice. Emily, sweetheart, I think there might be some confusion with my travel arrangements. Oh, hi, Mom. What kind of confusion? Well, I have a bus ticket to Los Angeles, but I thought we were all flying together from San Francisco. There was a pause.
Oh, that.
Yeah, so it turns out the flights from San Francisco were really tight, and it was just easier this way. You know how these things work. Sometimes you have to be flexible. But think about it. You'll get to see the beautiful California countryside on your way down. And we'll all meet in Honolulu at the same time anyway. It's about the destination, not the journey, right? Something in her tone felt off, but I pushed the feeling down. I suppose that makes sense. It's just 12 hours on a bus, and then a red-eye flight. Mom, you're so adaptable. That's what I've always admired about you. Besides, think of all the money we're saving that we can spend on fun activities once we're there. After we hung up, I sat holding the phone, that uneasy feeling growing stronger. I opened my laptop and pulled up the email again, reading through all the details more carefully. That's when I noticed something that made my blood run cold. Ladies, let me pause here for a moment. How many of you have had that gut feeling that something wasn't right, but you pushed it down because you wanted to believe the best in someone you loved? Keep listening, because this is where Margaret's story takes a turn that will leave you speechless. The email had been accidentally CC'd to another address, Jacob, martinsf@gmail.com. Curious, I clicked on the thread, and what I saw there shattered my heart into 1,000 pieces. Emily had forwarded Jacob their flight confirmations. But these weren't basic economy tickets. They were first-class seats on a direct flight from San Francisco to Honolulu, departing at 10 a.m., 13 hours before my red-eye. Their seats cost $2,400 each. But that wasn't the worst part. At the bottom of their confirmation, I saw the payment method. Margaret Cole, Bank of America ending in 4729. My bank account. My debit card. They had booked themselves first-class tickets using my money, while sticking me on a Greyhound bus for 12 hours followed by the cheapest possible flight they could find. I sat in my kitchen as the truth crashed over me like a cold wave. This wasn't a generous gift from my loving daughter. This was theft. And worse than that, it was humiliation designed to keep me as far away from their luxury experience as possible. Can you imagine discovering that your own child had planned your humiliation in such detail? The same child you'd sacrificed everything for, who you'd raised as a single mother, who you'd put through college and supported through every crisis. If you're feeling angry right now just listening to this, imagine how Margaret felt living it. My hands shook as I reached for my phone to call the bank. Mrs. Cole, I can see several large transactions on your account over the past month, the bank representative said after I'd been transferred to the fraud department. Are you reporting these as unauthorized? I looked at the printout I'd requested, my heart sinking with each line item. Can you read me the amounts and dates? Certainly. March 15th for $1,800 to Hawaiian Airlines. March 16th, $3,200 to Luxury Villa Rentals Hawaii. March 18th, $1,800 to Paradise Car Rentals. March 22nd, $2,100 to Ocean Adventures Excursions. Nearly $12,000. Gone from my savings account. Ma'am, are you still there? Yes, I whispered. I'm here. But I wasn't reporting it as fraud. Not yet. Because as painful as it was to admit, I had given Emily access to my account. 3 months ago, when she'd called crying about Jacob losing his job, begging for help with their rent and utilities. Mom, we're going to lose our apartment, she'd sobbed. Jacob's been looking everywhere for work, but the tech market is so tough right now. We just need a little help to tide us over until he finds something. Maybe 14,000? I know it's a lot, but we'll pay you back as soon as he's working again. My entire emergency fund, built up penny by penny over years of careful saving. But she was my daughter, and she was in trouble. Of course, sweetheart. Family helps family. I driven to the bank that same day and transferred the money, then given her my account information so she could access it if there were any other emergencies. Apparently, funding their luxury Hawaiian vacation qualified as an emergency. Mrs. Cole, would you like to dispute these charges? I closed my eyes. Not yet. Let me handle this my own way first. After hanging up, I sat at my kitchen table for a long time, staring at those numbers. $12,000 of my Hawaiian vacation money, plus the $14,000 I'd already given them. $26,000, more than half my life savings gone. But it wasn't really about the money, was it? It was about the cruelty. The deliberate humiliation of making me take a bus while they flew first class on my dime. The casual way Emily had lied to my face, laughing about being flexible, while she and Jacob toasted with champagne at 30,000 feet. I thought about canceling the trip entirely, just staying home, licking my wounds, and pretending this had never happened. That would be the easy thing to do. Now, I want you to really think about this moment. Margaret could have just walked away, could have chalked it up to a painful lesson learned. Most of us would have. Most of us would have been too hurt, too embarrassed, too defeated to fight back. But Margaret? Margaret was about to show her daughter and son-in-law exactly what happens when you underestimate a woman who's spent her entire life solving problems. But Margaret Cole hadn't raised a daughter as a single mother by taking the easy path. And I certainly wasn't going to start now. I opened my laptop and began to research. If Emily and Jacob thought they could outsmart me, they were about to learn just how wrong they were. I didn't sleep that night. Instead, I sat at my kitchen table with my laptop, a notepad, and a growing sense of purpose that I hadn't felt in years. By sunrise, I had the beginnings of a plan that would give Emily and Jacob exactly what they deserved. The first call I made was to my old friend, Lester Yamamoto. We'd worked together at the library for 15 years before he retired and moved to Maui with his wife. Lester had always been resourceful, the kind of person who could find any book, solve any problem, and somehow always knew someone who knew someone. Margaret, what a wonderful surprise. How are you doing? I've been better, Les. Actually, I need your help with something rather unusual. I explained the situation, watching the sun rise over Fresno as I detailed my daughter's betrayal. Lester listened without interrupting, occasionally making small sounds of disapproval. Those little... He caught himself.
I'm sorry, Margaret.
That's your daughter we're talking about. No, finish that thought. Because right now, I'm not feeling very maternal. What do you need from me? I need to know if you still have connections in the Hawaiian tourism industry. Because I'm coming to the islands, Les. And I'm going to make sure this vacation goes exactly as planned. Within an hour, Lester had connected me with 3 people, a property manager who handled luxury villa rentals, a woman who ran a high-end concierge service, and most importantly, a lawyer who specialized in contract law and financial disputes. The lawyer, Patricia Chun, was particularly helpful. Mrs. Cole, since the reservations were made with your payment information and your card, you are legally the primary account holder on all these bookings. You have every right to modify the guest lists, access arrangements, and any other details. Even if my daughter made the original reservations? Using your financial information without your explicit consent for each transaction? Absolutely. In fact, you'd be well within your rights to press charges for financial fraud, though I understand this is a family matter. The property manager, David Caliohano, was even more direct. Ma'am, If someone used your credit card to book my villa without your knowledge, I consider that theft. I'm happy to work with you to ensure the legitimate cardholder, that's you, has full control over the reservation. By noon, I had a new plan in place. Emily and Jacob thought they were going to enjoy a luxury Hawaiian vacation on my dime while I suffered through buses and budget flights. They were wrong. They were going to get exactly the vacation they'd paid for, which, as it turned out, was nothing at all. The next 2 weeks flew by as I orchestrated what I privately called Operation Paradise Lost. Every detail had to be perfect, every timing precise. I felt like a general planning a military campaign, except my battlefield was a tropical paradise and my weapons were legal documents and property rights. First, I contacted Hawaiian Airlines. As the cardholder, I was able to modify the first-class reservations. Emily and Jacob's seats were downgraded to basic economy, middle seats in the very last row, right next to the bathrooms. Their departure time was changed to a 6 a.m. red-eye with 2 layovers. Meanwhile, I upgraded my own ticket to first class on a direct flight, departing 3 hours earlier than their original flight. Next, I worked with David to completely restructure the villa reservation. The booking was transferred entirely into my name, with strict instructions that only I would be allowed to check in. Emily and Jacob's names were removed from all access lists, and the property manager was instructed to require photo ID matching the reservation before allowing anyone on the premises. But I didn't stop at the villa. Every excursion Emily had booked, the helicopter tour, the sunset dinner cruise, the snorkeling expedition, was transferred to my name only. The luxury car rental became my luxury car rental. The spa day at the resort became my spa day. Lester helped me book additional accommodations at an exclusive resort that Emily and Jacob couldn't afford even if they'd wanted to. "Consider it my gift," he said when I protested about the cost. Watching entitled people get their comeuppance is worth every penny. The beauty of the plan was its simplicity. I wasn't stealing anything or breaking any laws. I was simply exercising my rights as the person who had paid for everything. Emily and Jacob had made one crucial mistake. They'd assumed I was too old, too trusting, and too technologically inept to figure out what they'd done. They were wrong on all counts. Before we continue with Margaret's master plan, I want to remind you that this story gets even more incredible from here. If you're loving Margaret's journey so far, please hit that like button. It really helps us reach more women who need to hear stories like this. And make sure you're subscribed because we share stories like this every week, stories about women who refused to be victims and fought back with intelligence and grace. 3 days before departure, I received a text from Emily. "So excited, Mom. See you in paradise. Hibiscus airplane red heart." I stared at the message for a long time before responding. "Can't wait, sweetheart. This trip is going to be unforgettable." It was the only completely honest thing either of us had said to each other in months. The next 2 weeks flew by as I orchestrated what I privately called Operation Paradise Lost. Every detail had to be perfect, every timing precise. I felt like a general planning a military campaign, except my battlefield was a tropical paradise and my weapons were legal documents and property rights. First, I contacted Hawaiian Airlines. As the cardholder, I was able to modify the first-class reservations. Emily and Jacob's seats were downgraded to basic economy, middle seats in the very last row, right next to the bathrooms. Their departure time was changed to a 6 a.m. red-eye with 2 layovers. Meanwhile, I upgraded my own ticket to first class on a direct flight, departing 3 hours earlier than their original flight. Next, I worked with David to completely restructure the villa reservation. The booking was transferred entirely into my name, with strict instructions that only I would be allowed to check in. Emily and Jacob's names were removed from all access lists, and the property manager was instructed to require photo ID matching the reservation before allowing anyone on the premises. But I didn't stop at the villa. Every excursion Emily had booked, the helicopter tour, the sunset dinner cruise, the snorkeling expedition, was transferred to my name only. The luxury car rental became my luxury car rental. The spa day at the resort became my spa day. Lester helped me book additional accommodations at an exclusive resort that Emily and Jacob couldn't afford even if they'd wanted to. "Consider it my gift," he said when I protested about the cost. Watching entitled people get their comeuppance is worth every penny. The beauty of the plan was its simplicity. I wasn't stealing anything or breaking any laws. I was simply exercising my rights as the person who had paid for everything. Emily and Jacob had made one crucial mistake. They'd assumed I was too old, too trusting, and too technologically inept to figure out what they'd done. They were wrong on all counts. Before we continue with Margaret's master plan, I want to remind you that this story gets even more incredible from here. If you're loving Margaret's journey so far, please hit that like button. It really helps us reach more women who need to hear stories like this. And make sure you're subscribed because we share stories like this every week. Stories about women who refused to be victims and fought back with intelligence and grace. 3 days before departure, I received a text from Emily. "So excited, Mom. See you in paradise. Hibiscus airplane red heart." I stared at the message for a long time before responding. "Can't wait, sweetheart. This trip is going to be unforgettable." It was the only completely honest thing either of us had said to each other in months. The morning of departure, I woke up at 4 a.m., not to catch a bus to Los Angeles, but to prepare for my first-class flight to Honolulu. I'd packed carefully, elegant resort wear, a new swimsuit that flattered my figure, and a silk dress for fancy dinners. At 55, I might have gray streaking my auburn hair, but I was still a beautiful woman, and for the first time in months, I felt it. My flight departed San Francisco at 7 a.m. As I settled into my first-class seat with a mimosa, I couldn't help but smile thinking about Emily and Jacob stumbling through the airport at dawn, struggling with their downgraded seats and multiple layovers. The flight attendant, a lovely woman named Keiko, noticed my good mood. "First time to Hawaii?" "Yes, and I have a feeling it's going to be a trip I'll never forget." And ladies, Margaret was absolutely right about that. This trip was going to be unforgettable, just not in the way Emily and Jacob were expecting. While I enjoyed hot towels and gourmet meals at 35,000 feet, I knew Emily and Jacob were discovering their upgraded travel arrangements. I'd made sure they'd get notifications about their flight changes at the last possible moment. Too late to fix, too late to complain effectively. My phone buzzed with a text message from Emily. "Mom, there's been some mix-up with our flights. We're stuck with these awful seats and layovers. Are you having the same problem?" I typed back, "Oh no, sweetheart. My flight is going smoothly. Don't worry, I'm sure it will all work out. See you in paradise." Another buzz. "What do you mean your flight is going smoothly? I thought you were taking the bus?" I turned off my phone. Let them wonder. 6 hours later, I was stepping off the plane into the warm, fragrant air of Honolulu. Lester was waiting for me with a lei made of fresh plumeria, his wife Keiko beside him with a huge smile. "Margaret, you look absolutely radiant," Keiko said, embracing me. "Revenge suits you." "It's not revenge," I protested, though I was smiling. "It's justice." Lester loaded my luggage into his car, a beautiful convertible he'd borrowed from a friend. "Your chariot awaits, my lady. Ready to see your kingdom?" As we drove through the lush Hawaiian landscape toward my villa, I felt something I hadn't experienced in years. Pure, unbridled joy. The sun was warm on my face, the ocean breeze carried the scent of flowers, and for the first time in months, I wasn't worried about money or family drama or anything except the paradise unfolding around me. You know what I love most about this moment? Margaret wasn't just getting revenge. She was discovering who she was when she wasn't constantly giving pieces of herself away to ungrateful people. Sometimes the best revenge is simply learning to put yourself first. My phone stayed off. Whatever Emily and Jacob were discovering about their accommodations could wait. I had a vacation to enjoy. The villa was even more beautiful than the photos. Perched on a cliff overlooking a pristine beach, it featured floor-to-ceiling windows, an infinity pool that seemed to merge with the ocean, and a master suite with a view that belonged on a postcard. This was what my money had bought. Not just luxury, but breathtaking beauty. David Calio-Hano met me at the property with the keys and a warm smile. Mrs. Cole, welcome to paradise. Everything has been arranged exactly as you requested. The refrigerator is stocked, the concierge service is on standby, and I've left my personal number in case you need anything at all. What about the other guests who were supposed to check in? His expression hardened slightly. As we discussed, only the person whose name matches the reservation and payment method is authorized to access this property. If anyone else arrives claiming to have a reservation, they'll be directed to contact the booking agency to resolve the discrepancy. I walked through the villa, trailing my fingers along the marble countertops, breathing in the ocean air from the wraparound lanai. This was what Emily had planned for herself and Jacob, this luxury, this beauty, this peace. Instead, she tried to stick me on a bus while they enjoyed paradise on my dime. Now the paradise was mine, and mine alone. I changed into my new swimsuit and poured myself a glass of wine from the welcome basket. As I settled by the pool, my phone finally buzzed with life. 23 missed calls from Emily, dozens of text messages, and several voicemails. I started with the texts. Mom, where are you? We can't find you at the airport. Mom, please call me back. There's some kind of problem with our villa. Emma, they won't let us into the house. They're saying only Margaret Cole can check in, but that's you. Please call. This is getting ridiculous. Call me now. The voicemails told the story I'd been hoping to hear. Emily's voice progressed from confused to frustrated to panicked. Mom, hi, we landed, and we can't find you anywhere. The villa people are being really weird and saying we're not on the guest list. Can you call them and sort this out? Then, Mom, seriously, what is going on? We're standing outside this beautiful house with all our luggage and they won't let us in. Jacob is getting really angry and I don't know what to tell him. Finally, Mother, I don't know what kind of game you're playing, but this isn't funny anymore. We've been traveling for 14 hours, we're exhausted, and we need to get into our accommodations. Call me back immediately. I deleted all the messages without responding and poured myself another glass of wine. Now, some of you might be thinking that Margaret was being too harsh. But remember, Emily and Jacob had planned her humiliation down to the last detail. They'd stolen her money, lied to her face, and tried to turn her dream vacation into a nightmare. Sometimes, when people show you who they really are, the kindest thing you can do for yourself is believe them. Let them sweat. I gave Emily and Jacob exactly 24 hours to figure out their situation on their own. From my poolside paradise, I occasionally checked social media to track their progress. Emily's Instagram story, which had started with excited airport selfies, told the tale of their deteriorating vacation. Hour 1. Slight hiccup with accommodations, but nothing we can't handle. Hashtag Hawaii Adventure. Hour 6, no new posts. Hour 12, a photo of a rundown motel exterior with a caption, Adventures in Budget Travel. Sometimes life surprises you. Grinning face with sweat. Hour 18, complete social media silence. Meanwhile, I was discovering just how magnificent Hawaii could be when you weren't worrying about money or family drama. Lester and Keiko took me to hidden beaches accessible only to locals, hole-in-the-wall restaurants with the best food I'd ever tasted, and scenic overlooks that made me understand why people called these islands paradise. You're glowing, Keiko observed as we watched the sunset from Haleakala Crater. I haven't seen you look this relaxed in, well, ever. I feel free, I admitted. For the first time in years, I'm not taking care of anyone but myself. And that's the real transformation here, isn't it? Margaret wasn't just getting revenge. She was discovering what it felt like to prioritize her own happiness. How many of you listening right now have forgotten what that feels like? When was the last time you put yourself first without feeling guilty about it? That evening, back at the villa, I finally turned my phone back on. The messages had multiplied exponentially. Emily, Mom, please. I don't know what happened, but we're stuck in this awful place and we can't afford anything else. Our credit cards are maxed out. Please help us. Jacob. Margaret, I don't know what your daughter told you, but there's obviously been some miscommunication. We need you to contact the villa and straighten this out immediately. Emily again. Mom, people are starting to figure out what happened. Someone posted about seeing us at this crappy motel, and it's getting shared online. This is humiliating. Please just call me back. I poured myself a glass of the excellent wine David had left and settled onto the lanai to compose my response. Emily, I can see you've been trying to reach me. I've been busy enjoying the beautiful villa you booked with my credit card without my permission. The same credit card you used to book yourselves first-class flights while arranging for me to take a 12-hour bus ride. I hope the motel is comfortable. It's about what you can afford with your own money. Enjoy the rest of your vacation.
Mom.
My phone rang within seconds.
Mom.
Oh my God, finally. Listen, I can explain.
No, Emily.
You can't. Mom, please just listen to me for a minute. I listened to you for 25 years. I listened when you needed college tuition. I listened when you needed help with your wedding. I listened when you needed $14,000 to save your apartment. And you repaid me by stealing my money and humiliating me. I didn't steal anything. That money was for the family vacation. The family vacation where you and Jacob fly first class while I take a bus. The family vacation where you book a luxury villa for yourselves while planning to stuff me in some budget hotel. That family vacation. Silence. Emily, you made a choice. You chose to treat me like a fool, like a walking ATM you could manipulate and discard. Now you get to live with the consequences.
Mom, please.
Jacob is furious. He's blaming me for everything. Our marriage is falling apart. People online are calling us entitled and making memes about us. My reputation is ruined. Your reputation should be ruined. You stole from your mother. I borrowed from you. I was going to pay you back. With what money, Emily? You told me Jacob lost his job 3 months ago, but I did some research. He was never fired. He quit his job to start some ridiculous cryptocurrency venture that failed. You lied to me about everything. Another long silence. How did you find out? I may be 55, but I'm not stupid. I know how to use Google, how to check LinkedIn, how to verify information. Did you really think I'd never figure out that you'd been lying to me for months? I could hear her crying now, but for the first time in my life, my daughter's tears didn't move me to comfort her. This is such a powerful moment, and I think it's one that many mothers will relate to. We're conditioned to fix everything for our children, to rush in and save them from the consequences of their actions. But sometimes, the most loving thing we can do is step back and let them learn.
Mom, please.
We'll pay you back. Every penny. Just help us get through this vacation, and we'll make it right.
No, Emily.
You'll figure this out on your own, just like I've had to figure out everything else in my life. Welcome to adulthood. I hung up and turned off my phone. The next morning brought a knock at my villa door. I opened it to find Emily and Jacob standing on my doorstep, looking like they'd been through a hurricane. Emily's usually perfect hair was frizzy from the humidity, her expensive resort wear wrinkled and stained. Jacob looked even worse, unshaven, sunburned, and carrying the distinct aura of someone who'd spent too much time in a budget motel room. Mom, Emily said, her voice small.
Please. Can we just talk?
I considered closing the door in their faces. It would have been satisfying, and they certainly deserved it. But I was curious to see what they'd say, how they'd try to justify what they'd done. You have 5 minutes. We sat on the lanai overlooking the ocean. The view was spectacular, the kind of view they'd planned to enjoy while I suffered through bus rides and budget accommodations. Emily spoke first. Mom, I know you're angry. Angry? I laughed, and the sound surprised even me. It was cold, bitter. Emily, I'm not angry.
I'm disappointed.
Anger implies I still expected better from you. Jacob leaned forward. Look, Margaret, maybe Emily didn't handle this perfectly, but you're being vindictive.
This is family.
Family forgives each other. I turned to look at him, really look at him. Jacob was handsome in that generic tech bro way, with his carefully styled hair and designer clothes, purchased, I now realized, with my money. But there was something weak about his jawline, something entitled in the way he carried himself. Family, I repeated. Jacob, when exactly did you start considering me family? When you married my daughter and discovered she had a mother with savings? Or when you realized you could manipulate that mother into funding your lifestyle? His face reddened. That's not, we were planning to pay you back. Were you? With what income? Your failed cryptocurrency venture? Your non-existent job? Or were you planning to come up with another sob story, another family emergency that required my life savings? Emily was crying again. Mom, I'm sorry.
I'm so sorry.
I know I messed up, but please don't give up on me. I'm still your daughter. Are you? I stood up, walking to the railing to look out at the ocean. Because my daughter would never steal from me. My daughter would never lie to my face while planning to humiliate me. My daughter would never treat me like a mark in some con game. It wasn't supposed to be like that, Emily whispered. We were going to make it up to you. We were going to show you such a good time. By making me take a bus for 12 hours while you flew first class? By sticking me in some budget hotel while you enjoyed this villa? Emily, exactly what part of that plan was supposed to be good for me? Jacob stood up abruptly. This is ridiculous. You're acting like we committed some major crime. Families help each other out. That's what the money was for. The money was supposed to help you save your apartment. Instead, you used it to fund a luxury vacation while lying about your circumstances. That's not family helping family. That's fraud. You can't be serious about pressing charges, Jacob said, but I could hear the worry in his voice. Can't I? I turned back to face them. I've already spoken to a lawyer, Jacob. Did you know that using someone's financial information without their explicit consent for each transaction constitutes identity theft in Hawaii? The penalties are quite severe. Emily gasped. Mom, you wouldn't. I might. I'm still deciding. The truth was, I had no intention of pressing charges. But they didn't need to know that. Jacob's composure cracked. Look, we're sorry, okay? We made a mistake. But destroying Emily's life isn't going to make this better. I'm not destroying Emily's life, Jacob. I'm letting her experience the natural consequences of her choices. Something that should have happened a long time ago. I walked back into the villa and returned with an envelope I'd prepared the night before. What's this? Emily asked, taking it with shaking hands. Read it. She opened the envelope and pulled out a detailed accounting of every penny they'd spent using my money, along with a payment plan I'd calculated based on minimum wage employment. If you pay me back $50 a month, I said, you'll have repaid the money you stole in approximately 43 years. Of course, that's without interest. Emily's face went white. $50 a month? Mom, we can't.
Then get jobs.
Both of you. Real jobs, not get-rich-quick schemes. Learn what it means to work for money instead of stealing it from family members. Jacob crumpled the paper. This is insane. You're being vindictive and cruel. I'm being exactly as cruel as you were when you planned this elaborate humiliation. The only difference is that my cruelty has a purpose, to teach you both that actions have consequences. Margaret's words here are so important. She's not being cruel for the sake of it. She's setting boundaries and enforcing consequences. There's a huge difference between revenge and accountability, and Margaret understood that distinction perfectly. I stood up, signaling that our conversation was over. You need to leave now. You're trespassing on property I'm renting. Emily stood slowly, still clutching the payment plan. Mom, please. I love you. I know I hurt you, but please don't throw away our relationship over this. For a moment, looking at my daughter's tear-streaked face, I felt the old maternal instinct kick in. The desire to forgive, to make everything better, to be the bigger person. Then I remembered sitting on that Greyhound bus, realizing that my own daughter had deliberately planned my humiliation while living off my generosity. Emily, you threw away our relationship the moment you decided to treat me like a fool.
I didn't do this to you.
You did this to yourself. I walked back into the villa and closed the door, leaving them standing on the lanai with their shattered plans and their mounting consequences. Through the window, I watched them walk away, arguing in harsh whispers as they disappeared down the path. And that was the last time Margaret would let Emily and Jacob disrupt her peace. But this story is far from over, because what happened next shows just how far-reaching the consequences of their actions would be. And trust me, you're going to want to hear about the unexpected ways this story spread and the impact it had on both Margaret's life and her daughter's reputation. The remaining days of my Hawaiian vacation were the most peaceful I'd experienced in years. Without the constant worry about Emily's problems or Jacob's schemes, I discovered parts of myself I'd forgotten existed. I woke each morning to the sound of waves and tropical birds, swimming in the infinity pool as the sun rose over the Pacific. I took long walks on secluded beaches, collected shells, and read novels in the shade of palm trees. Lester and Keiko introduced me to their friends, a wonderful group of retirees who'd found their own paradise in the islands. You should consider moving here, suggested Maria, a former teacher from Oregon who'd relocated to Maui 5 years earlier. You have that look. What look? The look of someone who's finally living for herself instead of everyone else. She was right. For the first time in my adult life, I wasn't managing someone else's crisis, funding someone else's dreams, or sacrificing my own happiness for my daughter's comfort. The freedom was intoxicating. On my last full day, I treated myself to the spa day Emily had originally booked for herself. As I relaxed under the skilled hands of a massage therapist, listening to the ocean waves through the open windows, I reflected on how dramatically my life had changed in just 1 week. My phone had remained mostly silent since Emily and Jacob's visit. A few pathetic attempts at contact, but nothing like the desperate barrage of the first few days. I suspected they'd finally accepted that I wasn't going to cave to their emotional manipulation. That evening, Lester and Keiko took me to their favorite restaurant, a small family-owned place with no tourists, just locals enjoying fresh fish and good conversation. Over my ties and the best mahi-mahi I'd ever tasted, we talked about everything except my family drama. So, what's next for you, Margaret? Keiko asked as we watched the sunset paint the sky in brilliant oranges and pinks. I'm not sure, I admitted. This trip has made me realize how small my life had become. I've been so focused on taking care of Emily that I forgot to take care of myself. It's not too late to change that, Lester said. You're 55, not 95. You've got decades ahead of you. Lester was absolutely right, and this is something I want every woman listening to remember. It's never too late to reclaim your life, to set boundaries, to choose yourself. Margaret's story didn't end with this confrontation. It was actually just the beginning of her new life. That night, I sat on the villa's lanai with a glass of wine, looking out at the star-filled sky and the moonlight dancing on the ocean. My phone buzzed with a text message from an unknown number. "Mrs. Cole, this is Jacob. Emily is too upset to contact you directly, but I wanted you to know that your actions have destroyed our marriage. She's filed for divorce and is moving back to Sacramento to live with her aunt. I hope you're satisfied with what you've accomplished." I stared at the message for a long time, waiting to feel the guilt he obviously expected me to feel. The old Margaret would have immediately called Emily, would have rushed to fix whatever was broken, would have somehow made this all her fault. But the new Margaret, the one who'd spent a week living in paradise, being treated with respect, enjoying her own company, felt something entirely different. Relief. I deleted the message without responding and went to bed, sleeping more soundly than I had in years. And that peaceful sleep marked the end of one chapter of Margaret's life, and the beginning of something entirely new. But the story doesn't end there. In fact, what happened over the next 6 months would prove that sometimes, when you stand up for yourself, the universe has a way of rewarding that courage in the most unexpected ways. I'm writing this from my new apartment in San Diego, just 3 blocks from the beach. After returning from Hawaii, I sold my little place in Fresno and used the equity to start over somewhere I'd always wanted to live. At 55, I'm finally living near the ocean, taking art classes and volunteering at the local library. Can you imagine the courage it took for Margaret to completely start over at 55? But that's what happens when you finally decide you're worth fighting for. Your whole life can change when you stop accepting less than you deserve. I never did hear directly from Emily after Jacob's angry text. Through mutual friends, I learned that she'd indeed gotten divorced and moved in with her aunt in Sacramento. Apparently, the stress of their failed Hawaiian vacation and mounting debts had exposed cracks in their marriage that went much deeper than money. Jacob, according to the same friends, moved back in with his parents and got a job at a call center. His social media presence, once full of entrepreneurial posturing and luxury lifestyle photos, went silent entirely. The viral nature of their Hawaiian humiliation followed them both online. Someone had recorded Emily's meltdown at the villa and posted it on TikTok, where it garnered over 2 million views under the hashtag entitled vacation. The comments were merciless, with thousands of people sharing their own stories of ungrateful family members and praising the savage mom who served justice with a side of paradise. Now, I know some of you might feel bad for Emily at this point, but remember, she created this situation entirely through her own choices. Margaret didn't humiliate her daughter publicly. Emily's own actions and attitude in that moment revealed who she really was to the world. Jacob's LinkedIn profile became a cautionary tale in business school forums about the dangers of cryptocurrency schemes and burning bridges with family. His name became synonymous with failure in the San Francisco tech community, effectively blacklisting him from any legitimate opportunities in his former field. Meanwhile, Emily's attempts to rebuild her life in Sacramento were hampered by her reputation. The story of her betrayal had reached her aunt's social circle, making family gatherings awkward and uncomfortable. Every job interview seemed to go well until they Googled her name and found the videos and articles about the Hawaiian incident. As for me, I received an unexpected windfall 3 months after returning from Hawaii. The viral nature of Emily and Jacob's downfall had caught the attention of a documentary filmmaker who wanted to purchase the rights to my story. The payment was substantial enough to fund many more trips to Hawaii, should I choose to take them. Isn't it amazing how the universe works? Margaret's refusal to be victimized not only freed her from a toxic situation, but actually opened up opportunities she never could have imagined. Sometimes when we stand up for ourselves, life rewards that courage in the most unexpected ways. I also started receiving letters from other mothers who'd seen the news coverage of my revenge vacation. Women from across the country wrote to thank me for showing them that it was possible to stand up to manipulative adult children, that boundaries weren't cruel, and that self-respect was worth more than family peace. One letter particularly touched me. Dear Mrs. Cole, I saw your story on the news and wanted to thank you. My son has been draining my retirement account for years with one sob story after another. After seeing what you did, I finally said no. He called me selfish and cruel, just like your daughter probably did. But I'm keeping my money, and for the first time in years, I'm sleeping peacefully at night. Thank you for showing me that I matter too. A fellow mom in Phoenix. I kept every letter, creating a file I labeled Mothers Who Matter. It became a reminder that my decision to prioritize my own well-being wasn't selfish. It was necessary. This is so important, and I hope every mother listening understands this. Taking care of yourself isn't selfish. Setting boundaries isn't cruel. You matter too, and your happiness and well-being are just as important as everyone else's. The payment plan I'd given Emily and Jacob remained unpaid, as I'd expected. I never pursued legal action, but I did keep meticulous records of their failure to honor their debts. Sometimes the most powerful revenge is simply letting people live with the consequences of their choices while you thrive in spite of them. 6 months after Hawaii, I received one final communication from Emily. Not a phone call or text, but a handwritten letter delivered to my old address and forwarded by the new tenants. The letter was 3 pages long, filled with apologies and explanations and pleas for reconciliation. She wrote about her divorce, her struggles finding work, her regret over treating me badly. She claimed to understand now what she'd done wrong and begged for a chance to make amends. But buried in the 3rd paragraph was the real reason for her letter. Mom, I know you probably think I'm only reaching out because I need help, but that's not true. Although, if you were open to it, I could really use some assistance getting back on my feet. Just enough for a security deposit on an apartment and maybe help with my car payment until I find something stable. And there it was, proof that Emily hadn't learned anything at all. Even after everything that had happened, even after destroying her marriage and reputation, she was still trying to manipulate her mother for money. Some people never change, and Margaret finally understood that. I read the letter twice, then walked to my kitchen and dropped it directly into the trash. Some people never learn. Some people are so fundamentally selfish that they mistake consequences for cruelty and accountability for abuse. Emily was one of those people, and I was finally at peace with that reality. Instead of dwelling on my daughter's latest manipulation attempt, I pulled out my laptop and booked another trip to Hawaii. Lester and Keiko had invited me to spend Christmas with them in Maui, and I decided to accept. This time, there would be no family drama, no hidden agendas, no one treating me like an ATM with legs. Just me, my friends, and paradise. As I filled out the booking information for my first-class flight, I smiled thinking about how different this trip would be from Emily's original plan. No buses, no humiliation, no settling for less than I deserved. I was Margaret Cole, I was 55 years old, and I was finally living the life I'd always wanted. The life I deserved. The life my money could buy when I was the only one spending it. And that right there is the power of choosing yourself. Margaret's story shows us that it's never too late to reclaim your life, set boundaries, and demand the respect you deserve. 3 days later, I was back in Hawaii, sitting on a beach with a book in one hand and a Mai Tai in the other. My phone was on silent, my cares were minimal, and my future was entirely my own. Some stories end with reconciliation and forgiveness. Some end with families reunited and lessons learned. This story ends with a mother who finally learned that she mattered too. And sometimes, that's the happiest ending of all. The last text I ever sent to Emily was simple. I hope someday you understand that the best thing I ever did for you is teaching you that actions have consequences. Until then, enjoy the life you've chosen. Mom. I never heard back. I never expected to. And for the first time in my adult life, I was perfectly fine with that. Margaret's journey reminds us that sometimes the people who are supposed to love us the most can hurt us the deepest. But it also shows us that we have the power to change our story, to set boundaries, and to choose ourselves. The last text I ever sent to Emily was simple. I hope someday you understand that the best thing I ever did for you is teaching you that actions have consequences. Until then, enjoy the life you've chosen. Mom. I never heard back. I never expected to. And for the first time in my adult life, I was perfectly fine with that. And that's the end of Margaret's incredible story. But before you go, I want you to think about this. What boundaries do you need to set in your own life? What relationships are draining your energy and resources without giving anything back? Margaret's story shows us that it's never too late to choose yourself. If this story resonated with you, please hit that like button and subscribe to our channel. Share this video with any woman in your life who needs to hear that she matters too. And let me know in the comments, what did you think of Margaret's decision? Do you think she was right to cut ties with Emily, or should she have tried to reconcile? Don't forget to subscribe for more stories that remind you that you matter too. Because sometimes the best revenge is simply living well. Until next time, remember, you are worth fighting for and you deserve to put yourself first.